Welcome to Inside Design with Kandrak and Cole. This podcast is a conversation between two business partners, Joanne Kandrak and Kelly Cole. Join us for a lively conversation about all things interior design, from current projects, trade show experiences, worldwide travel, what's in, what's out, and all the challenges and wins they've had running their successful design business. Whether you're a seasoned interior designer, new to the industry, or a creative enthusiast, you will walk away with insightful information, newfound inspiration, and a smile on your face after listening to these two. And here they are, Joanne and Kelly.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. It's episode 187 with Inside Design with Kandrak and Cole. And today we are talking about tile trends with Tile of Spain and our guest, Ryan Fasan. So a lot of people ask us, how do we kick off our projects? Where does the inspiration come from? And in our interiors projects, most of the time it's generally from, I'd say, a textile or art. But in kitchen and bath, inevitably, it comes from tile. So the world of tile is expansive, it's innovative, it's beautiful. And I don't really think the average homeowner really dives deep into the options that are available. Right?
That are available.
Because as we always say, you don't know what you don't know. So thus, another reason to hire an interior designer. So today, we're going to talk all things tile with our guest, Ryan, who is a technical consultant and ceramic tile specialist with Tile of Spain. And if you've never heard of Tile of Spain, it's actually a global brand in the ceramic tile industry, and they represent 125 manufacturers kind of under their umbrella, all which are members of the Spanish Ceramic Tile Manufacturing Association, which is called ACER. So Ryan has been in the industry for over 27 years. He's worked in all phases, which I love, from sales to product design to installation. And he speaks and teaches all over the US, Canada, UK, and Europe about tile and all things tile. So he currently is running his own specialty construction company in Canada. So all that to say, we're in good hands with Ryan today, and we're excited to talk to him about the latest in tile trends, because we know that you guys love anything trend related. So we are preparing for the upcoming Coverings Expo held here in Atlanta this year, and we will both be there. We'll be speaking to him again on that podcast. So yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Runs April 22nd to the 24th.
Yes.
Okay, so before we talk to Ryan Fasan, we want to tell you that this episode is sponsored by Currey Company. They're an Atlanta-based company, second generation family owned, that does residential and contract lighting. They have in-stock goods and upholstery and a broad range of statement-making accessories. So if you're attending High Point Market, they will be there. They'll be showcasing 300 new introductions. They're one of the companies to me that brings in so many new introductions every time. They have a new green bottle glass chandelier that we're very
they've got a couple of them
about.
Mm-hmm.
They always have a great lunch and much needed cocktails to accompany a long list of book signings, parties, a spring pop-up with threads, a new high-end pillow line. They always bring something cool. So, but most importantly, Currey has a brand new website.
I'm so excited.
With tons of new features. Mm-hmm. Just a few that we will be using are the True Freight Calculator, which I don't know of pretty much any other company that does that, because that's important to know.
Yep.
A configurator for the multi-drop pendants. Very helpful.
Yes.
Multiple ways to search. Also, in the ability to make project boards. So to me, a good website for searching is really imperative. And they do it all. So go ahead and check out our dear friends and our go-to source for lighting at curreyandcompany.com.
Awesome. Well, welcome, Ryan. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me here.
Ryan's joining us from Canada. We woke him up a little too early. Oops.
Yeah, it is a little early here. I get nailed by that 3-hour time difference quite a bit, because I talk to a lot of editors and designers on the East Coast, so they're always scheduling stuff at 10 a.m., which is very reasonable.
Sorry about that.
That's 7. That's all right. That's all right.
because
Like I
you
say,
have-
I'm used to it.
Because you have so much experience. I mean, there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna kind of ask you a mishmash of questions, and
Perfect.
hope you don't mind. Okay.
Of course.
Okay, so our podcast on the latest trends coming out of KBiz was released just a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest overall trend that everybody said was color.
Yeah.
So, especially in tile cabinetry and appliances.
Mm-hmm.
So, I feel like in Europe, colorful tile and stone is nothing new. But so how do you see this trend showing itself in the USA?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the U.S., as far as tile goes, for all of the 90s and the early 20-aughts was basically beige, and more beige with a little bit of gray splashed in. And it was around the pandemic times, actually, slightly before that when actually it was around the 2008 economic crisis when the U.S. started to become a less important market as far as exports went, and they started looking at other areas around the world to make up the sales because the U.S. housing market was just in the tank. So we started to see a lot of inspiration coming from France, which was still a very strong market, and obviously French colonial and a lot of the Basque Country styles loved a lot of color. So we started to see a lot of color coming up. Fast forward to this year, and I think the colors are here in a very solid way. Blues and greens are probably the strongest as far as off neutral color tones go. I think mostly because of how much vegetation and plants have come inside after the pandemic. I mean, there was a huge boom in gardening and houseplants, and we see a lot of that incorporated into designs in residences, and then in commercial environments, we see a lot of vegetation coming in
so true
in like living walls and things like that.
Absolutely.
So, the blues and greens really kind of offset and complement a lot of that vegetation that's coming in. We're seeing a lot of parallels in that in a lot of the decorative designs that we're doing, like that beautiful curtain behind you guys where we've got a lot of biophilic references and things like that. That's something I'll talk about a little bit more if I get an opportunity, because it's shifted just a little bit in terms of tile. But I think one of the biggest reasons why we're seeing a lot of color is the field palette, the neutral sort of our bread and butter tile that we go for our broad expanses has shifted from cooler, more austere whites and grays to much more nuanced earth tones. A lot of beiges. But nuanced beiges that aren't, they've got some rich coffee tones and or some
warmer, just warmer,
tones, I mean, looking at, it's funny, for anyone that isn't a tile person, looking at Pantone's color of the year this year, they look at it and they see a peach tone. I look at it and I see the light color of a terracotta. Which it's bang on for that. It's more of a nude or flesh tone than it is a peachy color tone, really, as far as I see it. There's a lot of parallels in what's happening in ceramics. This just simple raw earth is something that's coming into a lot of the ceramic programs this year, and that just plays against a lot of those biophilic references. It's a perfect, if you look at your color wheel, it's a perfect complementary tone to a lot of the blues and greens that are coming in.
It's funny. We've had Sue Wadden, who's the color marketing director for Sherwin-Williams, on the show. Oh gosh, 4 or 5 times. She would love this conversation. This is all her wheelhouse, but all of the conversation about how nature especially is affecting and economic times like the 2008 recession and COVID and how all of that really affects our environments.
I don't think people really realize that color has such a big part of that. That's how the trends kind of start to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it's an interesting conversation that you might look at. I think a lot of people, including us, kind of looked at that new Pantone color and was kind of like, not digging that. And then, but when you think of it kind of in the context that you're speaking, it makes perfect sense.
I love it mixed with a blue and a green. So it isn't like you have to take that Pantone color and, it has to go everywhere. It's nice mixed in with some of those moss greens and the blues. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think tile has a kind of unique perspective on trends just because it lasts so long.
Exactly.
The Pantone color of the year and all the other kind of trends that more transient materials like wall coverings or textiles, they can take a much more literal approach to trends, whereas tile kind of has to pick the moderate kind of through line that's going to be there for the next decade. And we're not necessarily looking to design products that fit exactly what's happening right now in terms of color tone. What we're looking to do is create the supporting tones, the kind of the melody that everything's going to play against for the next decade or two, because the tile's going to be there for that long.
That makes totally makes sense.
Yep. So I think that, every single time we've had to design a bathroom, I don't think there's a client that's ever come to us and said, I don't want it to be zen or serene or spa-like or whatever. So what products are you seeing right now that really evoke that feeling of health and wellness? Because I think that, again, COVID driven, that whole wellness feeling is affecting it's top of mind. Yeah, it's inspiring a lot of our design. So have you seen any particular unique installations or particular products that kind of give that feeling?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a Scandinavian term called hygge that is.
I have the book.
Oh, okay. So there you go. I don't have to describe it. Perhaps for any of the listeners that aren't
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead because
it's kind of the feeling that you get looking at a soft, comfy blanket or sweater sitting beside a fire with a good book. That's kind of how you'd describe hygge, and its textures and its naturalness. And the thing that's happening in the ceramic industry that's unbelievable right now is the advancements in digital printing technology, where you say that to someone and generally they think color, because you print color. That's what we know with our desktop printers, and that's what we do and have done since inkjet printers for ceramics came out in the year 2000, actually from a Spanish company. And what we're doing now is we've expanded so far beyond the 4-color printing process, where now we're printing structure onto our tiles as well. We can actually add or remove volume from the surface of the tile digitally so that it's in register, that it perfectly matches with the graphics that we're printing in color. So now we can create any natural texture. We can create
I had no idea
the feeling.
That you could do that.
Yeah, so
I love that.
So like there's rattans, so like that obviously the lamps and the wall in the background there are not ceramic, but there are ceramic programs that perfectly mimic rattan. You can print the mattification, like the matte surface of that rattan and all of that relief. So, in terms of decoratives that are matching with a field, so let's say we're doing a limestone or a travertine program or something like that, but we want to have that kind of inviting natural texture, that simple, inviting Zen feel. We can do a wave texture. We can do all sorts of stuff on the surface of the tile digitally and have it work perfectly cohesive with the graphic that we're printing on it as well.
How do you get the texture in there? How do you get the texture in there, when it's printed?
Well, so there's a couple of different ceramic inks that can be printed in our inkjet printers. One of them, in some cases, we'll print a glue and then we'll add some glaze material, a dry glaze material to the surface that increases the volume. In other cases, it's a ceramic ink that actually carves into the glaze. So we can actually play with the surface texture plus or minus about a millimeter by either adding or removing texture. In terms of health and
That's
wellness,
so
the other
cool.
thing that I have to just mention this as well. Like in terms of health and wellness, there's literally nothing that is a healthier surface than ceramics, because it's completely inorganic, completely inert, inherently inhibits the growth of mildew and bacteria. We've got a bunch of different chemical processes. Sorry, not chemical. It's a chemical reaction process, a catalyst process that happens within the glaze of the tile that works with different light sources to neutralize bacteria and sometimes, in some cases, viruses, depending on the type of minerals that are used within the glaze, that it can neutralize them on surface contact as well. So there's all sorts of ways to promote health and wellness in a space simply just by using ceramic tile.
I absolutely love that conversation.
I know.
Yeah. So shifting a little bit, we went to Marrakesh last year, trip of a lifetime. We were just blown away
That's
by
very cool there.
And we went to Lisbon afterwards and talk about tile. Oh my goodness. But one thing that we really love to incorporate in our designs is vintage, especially when we're mixing it with contemporary art and other more modern furnishings. So I'm curious as to, how do tile makers make or think, how do they create or, be inspired by patterns and prints and colors and things that help us as designers bring those designs to life? Because it's a very specific partnership, I feel like, right?
Yeah, it is. In one regard, sorry, I got a cat doing figure eights through my legs here. In one respect, tile manufacturers really don't have to go any farther than their workshop. The modern industry started in Spain and across other countries in Europe in about in the early 1900s, late 1800s to early 1900s. Most of the factories are still family companies today that started in 1906 or whatever, and they've got history that goes back another 2 to 3 centuries in Spain of producing tile. So a lot of the time they can look at their actual back catalog for a lot of inspiration. But for more modern manufacturers, a lot of what they do is trips like you just did to Marrakesh, and they'll actually take high resolution photos of products and then take them back to their design department, and they'll take photos of this product in situ that's been there for a century and a half kind of thing. Their design department will manipulate it in Photoshop, parse it out into all the various channels for all the various inks that they're using in their digital printing process, and they'll recreate not just the color but the texture, the patina. And all of that's done digitally now in modern mass production. What the other thing that a lot of times they'll do is there's still a lot of handmade manufacturers across Spain and other countries, of course, as well. They'll go to the handmade manufacturers, they'll get handmade biscuits done, so you can actually see the swipes of the person pushing the clay into a wood mold. They'll take casts of those, they'll go into a modern press line, and then they'll print digitally this vintage pattern on the surface. So they've got the manual feel within the biscuit, and then they've got the centuries of history in situ that's printed with patina and everything on the surface of the tile. There's actually one very famous Spanish interior designer that works with one of the manufacturers that's created a pretty robust product line now. His name is Francisco Segarra. And he's known for doing vintage retail and hospitality settings. And he creates a lot of his own furniture and textiles and things like that. And he started working with some manufacturers to create tile that worked with these vintage installations that he was doing. And
we'll
they
be
just
looking
became
him
so
up.
popular.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can introduce you actually at the show. He's there every year. So
Yes!
find me
That'd be great.
at the Spanish
Yes.
Pavilion and I'll walk you over. It's a very, very cool collection. That's it right there. The FS collection.
We're showing
he
it
does
for
some
all you
incredible
YouTubers.
things.
It's on the screen.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I just love that.
There's so many options out there. I don't think people even really realize. So if let's just say I'm an average homeowner, how do I even know where to look for something like this if I'm not using a designer?
Yeah, it's tough. That's a really hard thing for the average homeowner to, let's say, starting at your local big box or something like that. With it's better now that we've got flooring specialty big boxes with, say, like a Floor and Decor or tile shop or things like that, depending on where you are. But if like, I love your sort of tagline, you don't know what you don't know. The average homeowner walking into a big box or even better yet, a tile showroom, there's literally thousands of options and you can get overwhelmed very, very quickly. So I think it's hard for a homeowner. Like for years and still continue actually as a hard surface specialist working with professionals like yourselves and architects working on bigger projects like commercial projects and stuff. They'll come to me with, here's our design goals. Can you bring us a short list of materials, and I'll work with them through the selection and specification process to make sure that they're getting exactly what they want in terms of what's available in the industry. Having reps that know their product at your fingertips is one of the most important things. So I'd say for a homeowner, going into a tile specific distributor or a tile heavy distributor and talking to one of the professionals there and getting, even if you don't wind up buying there, just getting some idea of what you should be looking for in terms of technical characteristics, because the worst thing you can do as a homeowner is fall in love with the look of something and then find out that it's not applicable technically for the environment that you want to use it in, because then you've got that in your head and you can't see anything else.
It's just like anything else. If this is not your wheelhouse or you've never really dealt with tile before, you've really got to do your research. You really have to talk to people that know, especially if you want to do something specialty.
Yes.
And, sometimes, bathrooms, even tile backsplashes, it doesn't really require necessarily a lot of products. So make it really awesome.
Yeah.
And do something specialty.
Yeah.
Don't do your subway that everybody in the world is doing. So I think if anything, it helps you to know that there's a lot more out there, that you don't just have to go to your big box store. You can go to a specialty tile store.
Well, and especially I feel like for applications, because like when we went to Marrakesh and Lisbon, we were so enamored by the fact that there was tile everywhere, and especially up walls and around the ceilings. And so we got home and we were like, what is all this sheetrock that we have that's just plain? Yeah. And as much as we love paint and we love wallpaper, we were like, oh my gosh, why aren't we pulling the tile up, an entire laundry room floor or, an entire, ceiling. And so if once clients the regular guy out there who's a homeowner who's wanting to jump into a new project has kind of done a little bit of research and visit some of these specialty stores, is there anything that, since you're an installer and you're in construction, that people need to know when they do take tile kind of all the way up a wall or on a ceiling, like any
yes and no
issues that come about?
It depends. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there are. It totally depends on the kind of tile that you're looking at. Like if you're looking at slab. So I don't know how many of your listeners might know, but ceramic porcelain slabs come upwards of 5.5 foot by 11 foot now. So in a lot of cases, you can do slab, not just on floors or walls. There's a lot of furniture manufacturers that are now working with porcelain slab for a lot of their cladding. Yep. But if you're doing that on a wall, it has different substrate tolerances and things like that you need to take into account. The other thing that I would say is if you are working with those larger formats, the time for selection is not with all your other material finishes when your construction is completed. The time for selection of those is before you're at framing, like when you're at structural design phase. That's when you want to be selecting for that product, because especially in America, it's really important for everyone to understand that imperial measurements in tile are nominal. So if it says it's a 12 by 24, it's never a 12 by 24. The tile is produced in metric. So it's a 300 plus or minus millimeter by 600 plus or minus millimeter in the case of a 12 by 24. So when you're talking about, like, designers always love to have the tightest joint they possibly can. I generally work in setting with a 1 millimeter joint. So if you're doing 2 foot by 4 foot porcelain slab and you're doing a 1 millimeter joint, the more you can design the space specifically to hit those measurements at finished detail, the better off you are. And it's huge for your installer. It means your installer is in and out in a much quicker fashion. It means your installation costs go down. So anything you can do to get out ahead of it and make it simpler, and as the scale gets bigger, the more important that is. So if you're looking at slab, if your guys don't have to cut that slab when it comes on a site, except for maybe one or two, as opposed to every single one, that makes a huge difference in terms of installation.
That's a big deal.
The technical part is not the fun part. So you have to leave that technical part to somebody, but be aware that there is some technical issues that you have to deal with. It isn't like you just pick it and go.
Well, it's kind of like our friend Jessica Deuce, who does vacation rental design. She speaks to her housekeepers first, before she starts designing for vacation. It's like, talk to your installer first and learn from their perspective before you jump into maybe a very specific project or what could make their life easier. And it all relates to installation cost as well.
Yeah. You don't know what you don't know.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's just so interesting to me. So we have a lot of designers that listen, but we also have a lot of just creative enthusiasts and people that are just really trying to follow our lead in terms of making their homes better. So when it comes to tile and tile installations, what are some of the number one issues you see people doing wrong?
The
list.
No, it's funny. Like, tile doesn't have to be an intimidating or even necessarily expensive thing. I think people get a lot more afraid of it than they have to. There's all kinds of advanced installation certification programs around like national programs as well as state-to-state programs. I would say the number one thing that is the most important when tile's an investment that adds value to your home and can increase livability and ease of operation and quality of life, frankly. But if you're not looking at it as an investment, I'd say that it can be problematic. So what that means is hiring a design professional like yourselves, or talking to a manufacturer's rep and making sure that you get the advice in terms of the specification of product. And then the second most important thing, or possibly on par with that, is making sure you have a certified professional that knows how to install this product that you've spent all the time selecting and building for. So those are kind of the two biggest things that I would say that homeowners should be thinking about when they're talking about a broad expanse area. Anything that touches water and anything that's in the exterior, those two professionals become almost a non-starter without it, without having a certified installer and a qualified design professional working with you on it. But if someone wants to do a dry area, a backsplash, a feature wall, like any kind of homeowner can work with tile for those kind of areas, because they're not demanding environments and literally any tile will work. Like a lot of the product that you saw in Marrakesh, the classic Zalige tile in Morocco is a translucent glaze on a 20% porosity body, and most of it's installed with medium bed mortar, and it's been there for 80 to 160 years.
Well, that's just it. It's like tile is almost forever, isn't it?
Well, isn't it almost forever? It's forever art.
Yeah, more or less. And so, like you were talking about your design friend that does a lot of vacation rental properties, having tile on, like wainscot tile in any of the corridor areas, is a huge thing for
protects the walls
for vacation properties. Yeah, if you look at there was an NKBA study. It was either NKBA or it was, I can't remember, but I can find it because I have it in my notes. But there was a study that was done, and the wall, the frequency of repainting your walls is only based on the bottom 2 feet of the wall, because that's where all the damage happens. So
Suitcases.
Doing that in high traffic areas with a permanent surface like tile, especially for hotel corridors and vacation rental properties and things like that, the more tile that you put in those areas outside of where we traditionally think of it, it just makes a huge amount of sense in terms of maintenance of the property and livability for the guests.
Yeah. If you notice over the years, I've noticed public restrooms, you are almost always tiled to the ceiling, or else 3/4 of the way up.
Yep, and beautifully done.
Yeah, and because think about it, easy to clean. It lasts forever. So I think tile, it's beautiful, and I love the beauty of it. But the functionality of it, it's like kind of a win-win.
Well, we didn't really, at least for me, I'll speak for me. I didn't really start paying attention to hotels, restaurants, public restrooms until we started to do commercial work. And really paying attention to the finishes that are being used and how interesting they are. And when you really just take the time, I always tell people, if you're ever in town, go to the nicest hotel that you can find and at least just walk through it, go and have a cocktail, make sure you go into the bathrooms and just look around, because it can all be brought into your home in a smaller way. But a lot of that has to do with tile. And I think, it's like walking into an art gallery and not being intimidated. These tile showrooms, and they want to talk to you. They love what they do. Yeah. They want to share their passion. They want to educate you. So I always tell people, don't be afraid. If you see a pro source, we have so many tile shops in
Saks
in Atlanta. Yeah. Walk in and just start asking questions and see the applications that they have on display, and then take it home with you and think what you can do.
And go to Coverings.
Yes.
Coverings is here in Atlanta. What did I say? April 22nd to the 24th? They're going to have so many installations there. Get inspired there. And you may see something you've never seen before.
It's free to go.
It's free to go. Realize that you could possibly do this in your own home. So Pinterest. Oh my God, so many options of ways to turn tile different ways or mixing colors. And there's so much. It's beyond.
And we're gonna continue our conversation with Ryan at Coverings on Wednesday. We will be hosting a podcast there at 1:15, and we will be talking to Ryan again for the first 30 minutes. So there's so much to talk about. Like, we didn't even touch on all the exterior options for tile and how to really make your outdoor spaces, your outdoor living gorgeous. So I mean, it's endless what we can talk to Ryan about, but we want to make sure that you check out Coverings because we're excited about that. So you are so knowledgeable. It's crazy. Like, we could have gone off in 1,000 different directions. So I'm glad we get the chance to at least talk again.
Yeah.
But
I can't wait to see you guys in Atlanta. It was, I mean, this is my favorite thing to do is talk tile. We host a trip for journalists and design professionals every year to the trade show in Valencia, Spain. I just got back from it about a month ago. It's funny. Actually, I was us. You should. I mean, I was listening to your KBIZ episode, and for the people that were writing in, there was a bunch of different alumni from the trip that were writing in that are part of your
buddies. I know Lisa Mindy was there.
Yeah.
Well,
she was
sign
there,
us up.
and
we love that kind of
we'll
stuff.
have to talk about that in Coverings.
Okay, cool.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Of course. Well, hang on for just 1 second. We're gonna we have to end with our funny and our serious quotes, because if we didn't,
perfect.
we'd hear about it from our audience.
Yes.
So I'll do the funny one.
Okay.
If you see two best friends, just know that the shorter one is considered extremely dangerous.
What?
And that's from Stash,
What if
Birmingham.
we're both short?
Oh, this is my point. I thought that was hilarious.
We're both 5'2", and we're both kind of
extremely dangerous.
All right. The serious quote I really like.
Yeah.
If you don't feel at least a little bit like an imposter, if deep down there isn't a tiny hint of a question, can I really do this? Then you haven't scratched the surface of what you're actually capable of. And that's from @Powerhouse Women. It's
Right?
true. I mean,
You should always have that adrenaline rush of feeling kind of freaked out.
yes, I think actors still have it.
Yeah. We have it.
Yeah, we have it. Public speakers. I mean,
Yeah.
you just, So
That's good.
it's okay. A little bit of that's good for you.
Yeah, that's right. So just a reminder, everybody, to, if you are in Atlanta or if you'd like to travel and come hang out with us at Coverings, it's April 22nd to the 25th at the World Congress Center. It'll be completely fun. And thank you, Currey and Company, for sponsoring us. Check out their new website, seriously. And when you're at High Point, you absolutely must go. You're dumb if you don't go to Currey on your trip.
Oh yeah, it's
High Point.
amazing. And then take a second to share our podcast with your friends and give us a 5-star review so that others can find us. And if you are interested in design services, we are interior designers.
We kind of do that full time.
Yeah. So if you're interested in our design services, check out our website and our Instagram and reach out to us.
Yeah. So thank you, Ryan. We'll see you in a few weeks. And we really appreciate you taking time to be with us. I like how the sun is kind of rising as we keep talking, and your backdrop's getting a little brighter.
Yeah.
Well, it's not sun, it's gray, but it's getting lighter. We'll say it's getting lighter.
Join Joanne and Kelly for a new episode every other Friday as they continue to explore the nuances of the interior design business with the goal of informing, inspiring, and entertaining their listeners. See their work at candrak-cole.com and engage with them on Facebook and Instagram @CandrakCole.